Welcome to the Explainer. Today we're opening up that specific shelf in your closet or, that dusty box shoved under your bed. We are talking about the graveyard of unfinished hobbies. We're going to break down the actual psychology behind why we enthusiastically launch into a brand new project only to completely abandon it just a short time later. Seriously, have you ever just stopped and looked around your room at all your abandoned projects? If you're sitting near a collection of completely untouched gear right this very second, listen, you are definitely not alone. It feels intensely personal, maybe even a little embarrassing when we look at these items, but I promise you, this pattern is incredibly common. Maybe it's that beautiful acoustic guitar that has essentially become a really, really expensive coat rack. Or perhaps it's the half-finished painting just sitting silently in the corner of your office. For a lot of us, it's that towering, intimidating pile of heavy, ambitious books you started reading but never actually finished. We all know the cycle, right? You feel this sudden, intense burst of excitement for something totally new, you buy absolutely all the gear, and you vividly imagine yourself mastering it. But then, a few weeks later, that spark just completely fades into nothing. Okay, let's dive right into this. It is so easy for society, and honestly for ourselves, to label this behavior as a simple lack of discipline. We call ourselves lazy or flighty, but psychology tells a totally different story. This isn't laziness at all. It's actually a learned psychological blueprint. Your mind is following a highly specific pattern to find comfort, to seek control, and to feel a sense of achievement without ever having to risk real-world failure. It all starts right here with mental stimulation. In psychology, simply imagining your own success gives the brain an immediate sense of achievement. Your brain literally confuses the act of thinking about progress with actually making progress. When you decide to start a new hobby, you get this massive rush of mental stimulation. Your brain releases these little hits of satisfaction, a quick dopamine reward, just from daydreaming about your huge new goals and from the sheer thrill of hitting checkout on all those shiny new supplies. So let's trace how this biological trick plays out step by step. Step 1, you imagine the success. Step 2, you buy the gear. Step 3, your brain delivers that sweet, sweet dopamine hit. And step 4, well, you completely lose your sense of urgency. This whole process creates what psychologists call a relief loop. Because you already feel a profound sense of satisfaction from that early dopamine rush, you feel like you've already put the work in. Ironically, getting that initial reward actually destroys your drive to do the hard, repetitive work required to truly finish the project. What's really fascinating here is that we're addicted to potential. We aren't actually addicted to the effort. We're hooked on the possibility. The planning phase, it's flawless. It's endlessly exciting. But actually learning to strum that guitar or mix paints for that canvas, that is slow, it's repetitive, and it is deeply uncomfortable. Your brain strongly prefers staying in the planning phase because as long as the project remains unfinished, your dream of it remains absolutely perfect. This brings us to a really profound truth. One day is a safer place to live than today because one day doesn't have any mistakes yet. If you relate to this, listen to me. You do not lack ambition. What's actually hiding underneath your initial motivation to start all these projects is a deep-seated fear of failure. You stay attached to this grand, glittering idea of who you could be one day because that fantasy feels vastly superior to facing the messy, imperfect reality of who you are today. By staying in this starting phase forever, you're actually accomplishing something incredibly protective. You're building a fortress around your self-image. If you never actually finish the hobby, you never have to face a final result. A final result can be judged, right? A final result might not be perfect. So by keeping the project in a perpetual state of just beginning, you completely shield yourself from the risk of real-world judgment. There's another fascinating layer to this psychological blueprint. Starting a new hobby provides a powerful, if completely false, sense of control. Think about it. When your real life feels uncertain or overwhelming, your brain desperately scrambles for ways to turn chaos into something manageable. Suddenly, deciding to start a brand new hobby makes perfect sense. It gives you a fresh, highly organized little space where you are entirely in charge. Buying the gear, setting up the workstation, it acts as a direct coping mechanism to regain your emotional balance. But here's the fatal flaw in that whole coping mechanism. As soon as you move past the neat, organized planning phase and actually try to execute the hobby, it gets messy. You hit a terrible wrong chord on the guitar. You completely ruin the perspective on your painting. Suddenly, this thing that was supposed to give you a comforting sense of control becomes an active source of stress. It feels difficult. So what does your brain do? It bails. It abandons the difficult project entirely and immediately starts hunting for a brand new, pristine hobby to restart that cycle of control all over again. This brilliantly illustrates one of our deepest insecurities as human beings. The role of the beginner is remarkably safe. When you're a beginner, people cut you a lot of slack. You can comfortably hide behind your vast potential rather than having to demonstrate any actual skill. Success in any hobby is honestly kind of dangerous because it strips away all of your convenient excuses. I want to speak directly to the overthinkers out there right now. You might possess a really deep-seated fear of being seen clearly. If you finish a project and you actually become skilled or accomplished, people can now judge your tangible abilities. You can no longer hide behind the excuse of, "Oh, I'm just starting out." Finishing something forces a terrifying change in your identity. Your brain stalls out and makes you quit because it is desperately trying to resist losing that older, much safer version of yourself. This hits the absolute deepest psychological layer of why we collect hobbies. If you grew up feeling like you constantly had to earn your place, maybe by always being useful or by always being the interesting one, you likely learned this lesson. Your value is tied to the journey, not the outcome. You learn to attach your entire identity to the act of chasing success rather than to the success itself. The late nights, the obsessive planning, the thrill of unboxing the new gear, that doesn't just feel good, it literally becomes a core part of who you are. You adopt what we call the ambitious dreamer identity. You become the person who always has a grand, exciting new project on the horizon. But think about the massive psychological stakes here. If you actually sit down and finish the project, the ambitious dreamer persona disappears. The chase is over. And strangely enough, your brain treats that completion, that loss of identity, as a massive uncertainty that it simply is not ready to handle. So it sabotages the finish line just to keep the dreamer alive. So let's pull all of this together and completely reframe how we view that graveyard of hobbies in the closet. It's so easy to default to self-blame, to guilt, to calling ourselves distracted or undisciplined. But in reality, this is all about understanding your protective mind. This behavior isn't a flaw, it's a profound, intricate way your mind learned to handle a chaotic world, to maintain emotional balance, and to fiercely protect your fragile self-image from the sting of real-world failure. I want to leave you with a thought to completely change how you look at the unfinished projects sitting in your room right now. Once you understand these patterns, you can finally stop blaming yourself. But it begs a massive, really exciting question. If your unfinished projects are just your brain trying to keep you safe, who could you be if you stopped needing protection? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you look at your next big idea a little bit differently.